Hello and welcome back. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay informed on the latest news affecting the royal family. Today we reflect on a moment that reminds us just how fragile even the most enduring institutions can be. What was to be a deeply symbolic and historic meeting between King Charles III and Pope Francis has now been postponed, a decision born not of politics or diplomacy, but of health and humanity. Buckingham Palace confirmed this week that the King and Queen consort Camilla have cancelled their scheduled visit to the Vatican, originally planned for early April. The meeting was meant to mark an important chapter in Charles' reign, strengthening ties between the United Kingdom and the Vatican. But as news of Pope Francis' health struggles became more serious, priorities naturally shifted. This is not a cancellation prompted by disagreement or diplomatic difficulty. It is an act of consideration and mutual respect between two elders of influence, each facing their own personal health battles. Pope Francis, 88, has recently emerged from what his doctors have described as one of the most serious medical crises of his papacy. After being admitted to Rome's Gemelli Hospital in February with bronchitis, his condition worsened into double pneumonia, a dangerous development, especially for a man with a long history of respiratory issues. He underwent treatment for weeks, and while he was finally discharged just days ago, his recovery is far from complete. Vatican doctors have advised him to rest, perhaps for an extended period. And it was under this advice that the decision to cancel the royal audience was made, not unilaterally, but as a mutual act of grace. King Charles, too, is facing his own health journey. At 76 and recently diagnosed with cancer, his schedule is being carefully managed. While the precise nature of his illness has not been disclosed publicly, the palace has confirmed he is undergoing treatment and will only engage in select public engagements during this period. That both these men, figures steeped in duty, tradition, and expectation, are navigating illness at the same time lends an added depth to this story. It's not just about postponing a state visit. It's about confronting the vulnerability of leadership and the need to balance symbolic presence with human preservation. The meeting would have been more than ceremonial. Planned as part of a broader state visit to Italy, the Vatican audience was to serve as a moment of spiritual reflection, shared values, and diplomatic affirmation. Both the monarchy and the papacy are institutions steeped in centuries of influence, often walking parallel paths of moral and symbolic leadership. Though different in doctrine and structure, they are united in their pursuit of stability, heritage, and care for global society. The planned visit to the Holy See therefore held a weight far beyond its logistics. Sources close to the palace say King Charles and Queen Camilla were not just prepared but hopeful. They had expressed sincere wishes for Pope Francis' recovery, and even held off final changes to the trip until it became clear that the pontiff's recovery would take longer than hoped. Their statement was simple yet telling. Their Majesties send the Pope their best wishes for his convalescence and look forward to visiting him in the Holy See, once he has recovered. This is not a goodbye but a gentle pause, one rooted in compassion and in a mutual understanding of shared human limits. Despite the Vatican cancellation, the royal couple's larger tour of Italy is still expected to proceed, though the schedule may now be subject to change. Without the Vatican visit, the tone of the trip may shift slightly from spiritual and ecumenical toward the political and cultural. Still, the symbolism of what was planned continues to resonate. This was to be King Charles' first official visit to Pope Francis as monarch. It would have carried with it a message of interfaith solidarity, especially relevant in an era of growing social and geopolitical fragmentation. It's worth noting that Pope Francis and King Charles are no strangers. They met in 2017 during Charles' official tour as Prince of Wales and again in 2019 at the canonization of British Cardinal John Henry Newman, a moment of ecumenical significance. Both men share a deep commitment to environmental stewardship and have spoken on global issues like poverty, climate change, and migration. Their public statements, while grounded in different institutions, often echo one another in tone and urgency. For many viewers, this story is not just about protocol or health updates. It's a humanizing reminder that behind the robes and crowns are individuals, aging, enduring, and still deeply committed to service. We live in an age where leadership is often measured by volume, by sharpness of tone, or visibility in media. But figures like Pope Francis and King Charles III lead not just by what they say but by how they live, with restraint, with humility, and with continuity. The postponement of this visit comes at a time when both institutions, the Crown and the Vatican, are being quietly redefined. In their twilight years, these two leaders are passing not only ceremonial batons but moral ones as well. For King Charles, it is the continuation of his long-held passion for interfaith dialogue and spiritual diplomacy. For Pope Francis, it is the embodiment of his Jesuit ethos, one of discernment, patience, and pastoral care. That their paths were meant to cross again under such meaningful circumstances speaks volumes about the convergence of history and present. There is, of course, concern among supporters of both leaders about their health. For Pope Francis, whose papacy has now extended over a decade, each health update carries a weight of speculation about succession and continuity. For King Charles, whose reign has only just begun, the prospect of a limited public role so early into his kingship introduces uncertainty. And yet, in both cases, the response has not been panic but grace. Their respective teams, both at Buckingham and in Rome, have communicated with clarity and respect. And in doing so, they've shown that the institutions they represent remain stable, dignified, and focused on long-term continuity. In the end, what this moment shows is that leadership, especially the kind rooted in tradition and moral compass, need not be loud to be impactful. The decision to cancel was not dramatic. It was respectful. It honored the well-being of two men whose lives had been shaped by service, and who continue to model that same service through prudence and care. That, perhaps, is the lesson embedded here, that legacy is not only built by action, but by knowing when to pause, reflect, and prioritize humanity. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay informed and stay engaged.